Angela walked into the store, hoping for a quick errand. The fluorescent lights above buzzed, their cold glow illuminating the shelves of mundane products. But little did she know, the encounter she was about to have would be anything but ordinary. Without warning, Officer Miller's grip tightened on her arm. Angela felt her pulse race, but she didn't flinch. She wasn't going to be intimidated. "You can't do this," she said under her breath, barely containing her fury. Angela's heart pounded in her chest as the officer's cold handcuffs clicked into place. "This is wrong," she thought, her anger boiling over. She had every right to stand her ground. But this officer had no idea who he was dealing with. The second officer stepped in, his finger jabbing toward Angela's face, his words sharp and filled with disdain. "You better watch your mouth," he warned, trying to assert control. But Angela wasn't about to back down. The air was thick with anger as both officers loomed over her, their words cruel and unjust. But Angela wasn't afraid. She knew she was right, and she wasn't going to let them make her feel small. In that moment, Angela realized something fundamental. This wasn't just about an arrest. It wasn't just about the flashing lights or the cold metal of the handcuffs biting into her wrists. This was bigger. This was a reminder of the long, painful history that weighed down her people. A reminder of the times she had to hold her head high, even when the world tried to break her down. And this officer Miller, had no idea who he was dealing with. He thought his badge and uniform gave him power. But Angela knew her power came from something far greater: her strength, her resolve, and her unwavering commitment to justice. As Officer Miller's grip tightened, a wave of realization hit her. He had no clue what kind of woman he was trying to arrest. She wasn't just a bystander in the world's story. She was a leader, a fighter, someone who had fought hard to be where she was. A black woman in a position of power wasn't a mistake. It was a statement that racism and oppression would not go unchallenged. Angela wasn't scared. The fear that many expected her to feel wasn't there. Instead, she felt anger, yes. But it was the kind of anger that sparked change, a fierce, righteous fire that would only burn brighter as the injustice unfolded before her eyes. She would not let them take her dignity, no matter how hard they tried. No matter how many times they raised their hands, used their authority, or tried to make her feel less than human. In this moment, as she stared into the cold eyes of Officer Miller, she didn't just see a man in a uniform. She saw the reflection of a system that had for too long stood against people like her. People who had to prove their worth again and again. People who fought every day just to exist. But Angela, she wasn't just existing. She was living. And she was fighting back in ways that couldn't be stopped by a badge. The officers tried to intimidate her, tried to break her down with their fingers, their glares, their power. But Angela knew something they didn't. Their power was a lie. And soon, they would understand just how deep that lie ran. Her thoughts swirled, a mix of frustration and resolve. This was bigger than her. This was about showing the world that no one could silence her. Not the officers, not the system, not anyone. And soon, her true identity, the mayor of this city, would bring the reckoning they so desperately deserved. She wasn't going to beg for mercy. She wasn't going to stand down. The fight had just begun, and Angela was ready to show them just how fierce she could be. The world wasn't ready for the power she was about to unleash. As the minutes dragged on, the tension in the air became almost unbearable. Officer Miller's grip on the handcuffs tightened, but his control over the situation was slipping. Angela's rage simmered beneath the surface, but she wasn't about to let her emotions control her. Numbers, she had learned to channel that fury into something far more powerful. Her eyes narrowed, a silent promise to herself that this moment would not go unpunished. She didn't need to shout, to fight back physically. Her presence alone was enough to command respect, to challenge the system. And she wasn't backing down. The officer's words came like a barrage of insults, but Angela stood still, her breath steady, her posture unwavering. She was no longer just a woman caught in a moment of racial injustice. She was a force that had been tempered through years of struggle, years of fighting for equality, for justice, years of fighting to be seen as equal. Just as Officer Miller raised his voice again, something shifted in the air. Angela could feel it. The weight of the room seemed to change, and that's when she made her move. She demanded to make a phone call, not just any phone call. It was a call that would change everything. She knew exactly what to say and who to call. And with that, she asked for the police chief to meet her at the station, asking him to bring the necessary documents to confirm her identity. She said nothing more, but the tone in her voice made it clear this was no ordinary woman. As the call ended, the officers, still confused by her calm demeanor, exchanged wary glances. They were underestimating her. They didn't know who they were dealing with. Angela was no typical citizen. She wasn't someone they could push around. She was the mayor of the city. And as the seconds ticked by, the reality of that truth began to sink in. When the police chief arrived accompanied by a few other senior officers, the truth was undeniable. Angela was the mayor. The room froze in silence. The look on Officer Miller's face was a mix of disbelief and horror as he realized who he had just tried to arrest. The second officer, still standing by, looked from the chief to Angela, a wave of shame washing over him as he too came to the grim realization of what had just happened. The police chief's voice broke the silence. "What is going on here?" His words were calm, but there was an edge of anger beneath them as he turned to Officer Miller. "You just arrested the mayor!" The officers were dumbfounded. They had no idea the woman they were dealing with was someone they should have respected and revered, not humiliated. Angela stood tall, her anger now replaced with a quiet but powerful resolve. She was calm, but the message she sent was clear. This wasn't going to be swept under the rug. Racial profiling and injustice would not go unchallenged. And Officer Miller would learn the hard way that no one is above the law, not even someone with a badge. The officers, now realizing the full extent of their mistake, were quickly reprimanded. Officer Miller's face turned ashen as the police chief ordered an immediate investigation into the incident. The scene that had once been filled with chaos now simmered with a sense of justice slowly falling into place. Angela, however, wasn't there to gloat. She wasn't there to seek revenge. She was there to stand for what was right. She didn't need to scream or shout. She had already made her point. She had power. And now the entire force knew just how much she commanded that power. As Angela left the station, her head held high, she knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The encounter at the store had become a pivotal moment in her journey. a moment that would echo far beyond the walls of that police station. Because Angela was more than just the mayor. She was a symbol of what it meant to stand up against oppression, to challenge injustice, and to show that no one, no matter their race, gender, or position of power, could be silenced. This was her victory, not because of the formalities of her position, but because she fought for what was right. And in the end, that was the kind of power no badge could ever take away.